All right, here we go. This is the highly requested camera comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S10e and the iPhone XR. And I think the camera is going to be the decision maker here because they're both the same price. They both have nice hardware, but it needs to come down to the camera on which is the better $750 device. So let me know which video looks better, what microphone sounds better, and let me know what the stabilization is doing. And I'm going to go around today and test these cameras under every lighting condition and let you know which one that I think is the better camera. Let's do it. Before we get started, I want to talk about the settings. Everything was left in auto exactly how it comes by default. So iPhone XR with Smart HDR on and the Galaxy S10e with scene detection on. The only tweak I made was to the Galaxy S10e's front-facing camera. I turned all of the beauty effects down. Keep in mind that the Galaxy S10e does have a Pro mode built into the camera app, so if you want to tweak your settings before taking the pic, you can. But to keep things as fair as possible and to represent the average user best, I kept both phones on auto. Both of these phones are very similar in daytime photos, both full of color, nice dynamic range, great sharpness, and outstanding detail. But after looking at over 300 photos side by side, here's what I noticed. They go back and forth a lot, so it's hard to generalize, but the Galaxy S10e tends to land warmer on white balance than the iPhone XR in the majority of the shots, so this is all just personal preference. They both have times where one phone lands deeper contrast than the other, so it all depends on the situation. Sometimes the XR ends up taking the more saturated photo, and then the XE a lot of the times ends up taking the more saturated picture, so it does go back and forth. I do have to note that the iPhone XR most of the time does a better job of overall exposure. The Galaxy phones are known to overexpose by a stop or so, and the XE is no different. You'll find some highlight clipping, especially in the clouds, but I know that a lot of non-technical users tend to favor the brighter and more vibrant picture that is slightly over-sharpened. So if that's the case for you, then you might pick the XE in a lot of these shots, but there are times where the XR takes the brighter picture too, so it's definitely a back and forth thing. There are times where the Galaxy S10e shows higher dynamic range, and also with HDR processing, I feel like the S10e can get pretty aggressive with boosting shadow detail, but in some cases that makes the S10e look fantastic, and having that ultra wide angle camera on the back just gives you more flexibility to the shot where the XR just has one lens. The ultra wide angle camera honestly is one of the biggest reasons why you should buy the XE. It's just so useful and the quality is also on point. I just love the different perspective that you can get with the wide angle. Now you do have an option of digital zoom on both these cameras, both of them not so great, but if you're wondering about the quality, when you punch in all the way, you can see that Samsung is over sharpening at the maximum digital zoom shot. Samsung's warmer white balance choice tends to give times like golden hour an incredible look. The iPhone does a great job as well, but its colder white balance makes that time more muted, where the S10e gives it that little bit of extra saturation and color depth to bring that moment justice. I also noticed that with macro shots and shots that are a little bit closer, they have more natural bokeh on the iPhone. That background separation is deeper without the use of portrait mode. It's not a giant difference, but it's noticeable, so if you like bokeh, then you will like the iPhone XR. Portrait mode is available on both phones. They both use a wider field of view to enable this mode, so there's no cropping in. They both do a decent job of background separation, and Samsung tends to boost up the skin to give it a brighter look, while the iPhone does a great job with more natural skin tones. The one thing to note is that on the stock app, the iPhone XR cannot take portrait shots of non-human subjects, so if you try to do that, you'll get this no person detected thing, which I wish they would change. The XE though can take portrait mode of anything, so keep that in mind. When it comes to the selfies, the S10e does have a wider angle camera, but the quality is very similar on each. But when you do portrait mode on the front-facing cameras, the S10e does soften the skin pretty heavily, even with beauty mode off, but they're pretty equal in my opinion. The latest update really did add the sharpness back to the selfies, so this is an improvement to what they did look like when I first got the phone, so I hope Samsung keeps improving this with software updates, especially in live focus mode. Both of these phones shoot 4K video up to 60 frames per second, and these two companies make the best video on the smartphone market right now. So you can see a little bit of a heavier crop on the Samsung. The S10 series are the first phones to shoot in HDR10 Plus, so that is fantastic. Both have really good detail and high dynamic range, so I don't think you'll be disappointed in either of these phones when it comes to video. The stabilization in 4K is also great on both of these phones. Here's an example of me walking around Animal Kingdom. Both have OIS and look natural while preserving quality, but the new Super Steady mode is incredible on the S10e. I told my son to just run and I would chase him through the park, and look at how stable the S10e is. It looks like it's on a gimbal. This is just handheld. It's mind-blowing. When it comes to the daytime shots, I really do think it's personal preference. The only reason I make these videos is to present you with as many varied shots as possible so you can decide on what you like better. Everyone's preference is different, so I hope these side-by-sides can help you make a decision on which camera is better for you. So let's get to low light performance, everyone's favorite. I think a lot of the same traits that I mentioned during the daytime are here on low light shots as well. You see that Samsung's dual aperture camera that goes to f1.5 really brightens up the picture with slight overexposure. You can see that happening consistently on the S10e. You can see clipped highlights here where I feel like the 10R does a better job at balancing the harsher light sources. But here we go again with the back and forth. There are shots where the 10e is doing a better job of balancing exposures and also giving more contrast and color to the shots. So again, it all depends on the situation. I do have to say that the brighter approach sometimes makes for a much more pleasing and ready to share shot. Sometimes the Samsung shot does have more noise, and I don't know why that is because it really doesn't make sense on a technical level. And one of the traits that I don't like about Samsung's cameras under extreme low light conditions is the aggressive noise reduction that usually results in muddy shots with lack of detail, and it tends to smear that image while the iPhone usually lets some noise happen but retains more detail in low light, which I favor. Once again, it's not like this in every shot. The f1.5 sometimes really shows grabbing more detail in certain lighting conditions, and the Galaxy S10e looks a lot sharper sometimes due to the slight over sharpening on the processing, and some photos just pop more with more saturation and sharpness. So I don't blame you if you like the S10e shots better. I just want to break down and point out some of the technical things that are happening while you make your decision on which one that you enjoy more. Just like I said on my XS Max versus the Galaxy S10 Plus video, the white balance difference is drastic between the two. Sometimes they can produce a shot where they look very similar to each other, but most of the time it's just drastically different. But most of the time the 10e is landing warmer with more saturated photos, but it really does depend on the situation. I was going back through these photos and just putting them side by side. They just kept flip-flopping back and forth. The iPhone does handle reds better in low light. I usually do the Coca-Cola building just to test this out, but I was able to find a lot more examples here at Disney Springs. The more I explored, the more I found. The Galaxy devices handle reds that come out more light pink, while the iPhone gives that deep saturated red look. Both aren't completely accurate, but the iPhone is closer to the real look. When it comes to nighttime video, they both look really good. You can really see the crop difference here. This is shot from the exact same distance. The S10e looks more vibrant and more saturated, more ready to share, but the iPhone's image looks like it will be better for post-production. But that wide angle capture is just stunning, and I really love having that option in video. When it comes to auto exposure on video at night, I feel like the iPhone is a lot more consistent and is not as aggressive on metering. So with varying light, you definitely want to lock the exposure on the S10e. When it comes to front-facing video, they both look pretty much like butt, so it's really not worth talking about. Nighttime selfies aren't particularly great on either, but a lot of these were taken before the latest update where they were just horrible on the S10e at night. The smoothing is still happening and it's pretty aggressive at night, especially on portrait mode, but I still think the iPhone has better colors. But the latest update, which this photo was taken with, really improved sharpness on the S10e. It's like night and day compared to what I had when I first got this phone. So while I would love to just give you a clear-cut winner on this comparison, I just can't because it's really back and forth when it comes to images and video. I really think it comes down to preference because they both have their faults and they both have their strengths. But I do have to say, having that ultra wide angle lens is really a winner, and having that extra lens for the same price really helps out. And I know that the iPhone does a great job with just one lens, but the limitation on portrait mode with only human subjects out of the box, and yes, I know that third-party apps can give you portrait mode on other things, but we're talking about an out-of-the-box experience. So if I had to just pick one camera, I would pick the Galaxy S10e because I feel like it's more flexible and will give you more choice. Plus, if you like to mess with Pro mode, that's built in right into the Samsung camera app, so that's an extra win. Image quality wise, I don't think they are wildly different, so no matter which one that you pick, you'll get a great camera. So let me know which camera that you think is better in the comment section below. Let's have a friendly discussion and let's not get offensive. It's just tech, folks. They're both beasts. So let me know which cameras that you want me to compare in the next video. Subscribe for more, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of them in the future, and I will see you in the next one.